limb on the 8-limb path is Samadhi. And Samadhi translates as total absorption in the present moment. It is to be captivated by, enthralled by, and totally curious about. We come onto our yoga mats and we have a chitta vikshepa, which is a busy mind. There's pressures of being alive and responsibility. And what we're doing is putting our body through ritual to turn it into a chitta prasad, which is a blessed mind state. So Samadhi is actually flow state. Flow state is an optimal human function, brain performance, and power. So when one has access to a flow state, they have increased attention. They are able to perform feats they could never perform with a regular mind. So what's so great about the flow state is we've got all these happy hormones that pulse through our veins when we're able to get there. Some qualities of flow are loss of self. So my personality evaporates. I lose track of time. Time dilates, means it either speeds up or slows down. There is an intrinsic motivation. So when I am accessing flow state, I am able to find motivation that is beyond my basic survival needs. So it's not about food in my belly, roof over my head, and whether I belong or not. It is intrinsically motivated by a desire to be focused. So flow, truly all it is a crazy amount of focus on one particular target, movement, project. So when you look at happiness, the first component, the first level of happiness is hedonistic pleasure. And what that means is I eat something that I love, I drink something that I love, I see a painting that I love, and it's fleeting, and yet I'm always kind of chasing that pleasure that I felt because I got dopamine, I got neuroepinephrine, I got endorphins running through my body. Then beyond that, we get into engagement in what we are doing. So it's no longer about food or drink or sex. It's actually through my engagement with what I'm doing. And this occurs for many of us who struggle with ADHD or trouble being focused. It happens first on the yoga mat. Now, for some of you, you might have played music when you were young, or danced, or you loved to play outside and climb trees. So you likely had access to this brain state that gave you the happy hormones. And then your mom would call you inside and she'd be like, eat your broccoli, and you would get out of the flow state. So as yogis and people that want to learn how to focus the mind, we are attempting to eventually link our curiosity, our enjoyment with purpose. So that's that fancy yogic word, dharma. So it is a justice, it is a moral compass, and it is written inside of us as something that we need to fulfill while on this planet. So if you think about that and you think about a flow state, I'll often consider what happens at a music show. There are musicians and they're on stage and they're singing and they're performing, and the audience is now getting access to a state of concentration through these people performing. It happens in sport. If you've ever seen a team that was really losing, and then all of a sudden it's halftime and the coach gives a pep talk, and all of a sudden there's this group energy where they're focused on a specific goal or target. And that's one of the really key components of flow is there needs to be a destination, something that we are attempting to understand. And for some of you, it might be climbing, it might be music or art or singing, but it's like there is something that you are directing your focus toward in order to access that Samadhi, that void space where everything evaporates. So the 6 qualities of flow are timelessness, meaning it either evaporates, 5 hours feels like a minute, or time slows like in a car crash. The second is there is an effortlessness to it. When you see someone performing, doing yoga, climbing, singing, and they make it look so easy, that is an indication that they're able to access that flow state. So a quick question is, when you were young, how did you access flow? Coloring, Lego, playing, running, riding horses. What was your access point as early as you can recall to losing track of time and self? The third, as I mentioned, is it's intrinsically motivated, meaning it is not for the external world to enjoy. It might start that way. You might see somebody perform or play an instrument and they're so good at it that you got that spark of inspiration, like, I want to learn how to do that. It looks fun. But eventually that starts to fade away, and the motivation is purely for the feeling and the mastery of what you're up to. So we know this to be true in our yoga practices. It might start out as, we really want to learn how to do a crow pose because it looks really cool and it's super challenging. And then eventually the crow pose is the access point to total concentration. The next piece, as I just alluded to, is this crazy ability to focus. The world falls away. It's almost like the tabs in the brain, all those open landing pages close, and our mind completely forgets our problems, our excitements, our future, and we're literally basking in present moment awareness. The next is that it is selfless. And what I mean by that is small self. So little Erin that gets frustrated and annoyed and she berates herself, or she's like, get it, get it, get it. That falls away, and all that remains is the high self, the drishti, the drashtu, the one that is watching. And we know through yoga philosophy that we've got this dualistic reality that makes us suffer. And so the more often we can linger in a state of watching, of observing, of connection, the happier and more satisfied we'll be. And then the last piece of it, which is my favorite, is that there needs to be an element of challenge. So there has to be a goal, a little bit of a risk, and it has to require all of us. So that is the power of the shapes, of the asana, is that it gives us a place to put our attention to get to this place of dopamine and passion and inspiration and connection. When you are in flow, it amplifies motivation, productivity, empathy, and drive. So how can we start to get more flow in every area of our lives? So not just in downward dog, but in conversation and walking in nature and sending that email. Back in the day, when we were hunters and gatherers, the flow state initially started because there was a threat. So our life was in trouble, or the lives of our tribe were in trouble. So we had to direct our attention to get the food, to fight off the predator, to do whatever needed to be done to stay alive. So in that time when there was a scarcity of resources, we could either run away, we could become eaten, we could fight back, or we innovated in order to continue to live, to continue to thrive. So the cool thing about knowing that is flow, it's when there is a perceived threat to get in the door to flow. And the more flow we have access to, the more flow is available. And it is a matter of endurance. It is learning to cultivate the skill of concentration and focus. My entire life I struggled with attention. I remember teachers talking and being like, oh my God, this is so boring. I remember I couldn't even hold my concentration, even doing things that I really enjoyed doing. I was so easily pulled in another direction. And because our world is inundated, we are bombarded with distraction, we're almost getting trained to be less focused, more distracted. So my suggestion or my request is, in a world full of distraction, how can we become more present? How can we listen better to ourselves and to the people that we surround ourselves with? So one of the biggest key elements of flow, and the first entry point, is curiosity. So curiosity is a strong desire to know or to learn something. Beyond yoga, when was the last time your curiosity got stimulated? For me personally, I've just started to put my hands on the bouldering wall. And what I love about it is I know nothing. I'm not very good at it, but I have this like spark to know more. So curiosity is just a little knock on the door for you to start to follow that and find flow. The second is passion. So passion is a barely controllable emotion or curiosity. It's like, oh my God, I just love it. Passion can be associated with falling in love. You know, that person is always on your mind, and you can't even control it. So the Sanskrit word for passion might be raja. It might be desire and craving and appetite for. But when it really does a 180 and moves from selfish to selfless, is when there is purpose behind it. So a purpose, dharma, is the reason for which something is done or created. Why did you decide to sign up for this course? You know, what was the purpose, the intention behind spending 300 more hours online to learn more about yoga? Purpose is really interesting because it moves from self to tribe to the world. And I know I say this a lot, but it's the move from immaturity, like, oh, poor me, why me, into how can I change this for the children, for my friends, for my family, for the world. Then purpose starts to move into autonomy. So autonomy is self-governance. It is freedom from what other people think of you, or that it's tied to anything else. How often do you make decisions and you think, oh my God, what are they going to think? What will they think of me? If we can start to eliminate that FOPO, that fear of other people's opinions, we get more and more lined up with our own path and our own trajectory. After freedom, so for me, let's say when I'm bouldering, I'm definitely kind of embarrassed, and I'm definitely like, okay, no one's looking, I'm gonna go try. When I'm able to drop that fear of what other people are thinking, I'm gonna be in my own little world, free of anyone else's expectations or opinions. So the interesting thing about fear of what other people think is most people are so consumed with themselves, they're barely noticing you. They don't even see what you're up to. And then the final thing that happens when we're able to truly be in flow is mastery. So this is comprehensive knowledge or skill in a subject or an accomplishment. So mastery is so much different than performance. Performance says, well, I want to make X amount of money. Performance says, everyone's going to think I'm amazing, I'm going to get fame. Mastery is that I am meeting myself every single day and just seeing who I was yesterday compared to who I am today. Mastery is a life driven by curiosity and growth. It is truly the place that any of the greats, like that's where they're living, because it's not about what other people think or what's in it for me. It is about living life to its fullest and continuing to grow and to change. So many people are afraid of change, and yet change is constantly happening. You know, everything is always changing. There are 4 stages to the flow state. So the first is struggle. Oh my God, I'm so afraid to wipe out in Pinchamayurasana. Oh, how am I going to do this? I keep kicking up and I'm using all my energy and it feels like a struggle, a fight. My body's tight. But that is a door in. Why? Because it is asking, it's knocking, it's saying, I need all of you here. You know, you cannot half-ass it. You're going to have to be fully on board if you are to learn this goal. So the second thing is release. So let's say it's Pinchamayurasana, it's crow pose. I'm trying, I'm getting frustrated, and then I release it. I let it go. I take a beat, I go out in nature, I write in a book, I do something completely different than this task that's kind of like really annoying. Then I come back to my crow, my pincha, my writing, my painting, and I'm able to access a little bit more of a flow state. It might last 5 minutes, it might last an hour. So just so that you know, flow, they say, is about a 90-minute cycle. So that's kind of where we max out. We have 90 minutes of like really intense concentration. But the thing about it is that it burns a lot of prana. And I've told some of you this before, but when I'm working on a project, I actually have to back off my asana practice because I don't have enough gas in the tank to put it toward writing or reading or whatever project I'm working on. And then the last stage of the flow cycle is rest and relaxation. So for many of us, we think that means to sit in front of the TV and turn off. That's actually not a form of relaxation because it keeps the mind churning and turning. You know, like whether we like it or not, we're being very stimulated by what we see on television. So to recover, to rest, to relax, is to walk in nature, have a bath, really attempt to turn your brain off, eat some food, do something that is like completely different to the task at hand. They studied back in the day lumberjacks, And they said, no, we believe that people they perform well when they do it for pleasure. So they said to the lumberjacks, like, just go out there and do your best. And then there was these two men that were starting to question whether or not that was truly a motivational factor. And so they split the lumberjacks into two groups, and the one group, they gave them a goal. So they said, you're gonna cut X amount of trees down, and you're gonna do that in the span of 4 hours. And then they watched the two groups do their thing, and the group of lumberjacks that were given a goal were way more successful and way more engaged and happy. So goal-oriented life and living is a really sweet way to line up with flow. So I always say this, but in the Gita it says you can definitely be passionate about your actions, but not to your actions' fruit. So we want to set goals and we want to reach these goals, but it's just trickery for the mind, because what we're really after is Samadhi, total absorption in the moment in front of us. It requires a lot of grit. So back to my reference of learning how to climb, I kind of don't want to do it. Like, part of me is like, I don't have to learn this skill. Why would I bother? Like, I'm already almost 40. But the thing about grit is it's coming face to face with a fear. So if you are petrified of speaking in front of a group, that might be a really cool skill to start to master. Grit is when we show up when we don't feel like doing it. When I was starting out as a yoga teacher, it was my first workshop, and it was in Calgary, and it was called Flight Club, and I was obsessed with the name, and I thought it was so cool. And so I packed this studio, and it was a studio that I loved to practice at. Keep in mind, I've never done it since. But anyway, so I prepared so hard for this inversions workshop. The day of the workshop, I got so sick, coming out both ends sick. I was drinking bubbly water. I was like, I think I'm gonna have to cancel. I don't think I can do this. But I was like, this is my biggest dream, and I have to be there. And there was this many people that paid the money to be there. I can't not show up. So I hop in my car. It's like a 2-hour drive. I'm pulling over. I'm throwing up. I'm doing the other thing. Hop back in my car. I take a sip of bubbly water. I'm like, oh my God, I want to die. I want to die. I just want to go back to bed. I get to Calgary. Everybody's there. There's this buzz in the room, and I feel so gross and disgusting. And I remember I go to the bathroom. I throw up one last time. I know now because of COVID, you would never go when you're sick. I throw up one last time. I brush my teeth. I'm like, okay, 2 hours. For 2 hours, you need to ignore the sensation in your belly. You have to ignore the sensation in your bowels, and you just need to go and do your thing. So for that 2-hour workshop, I had to really focus. I didn't have to leave the room to be sick, and I was able to kind of shut down my body's function and access this higher level of focus because it was so uncomfortable. So I ask you, through your life, where have you had to lean in or face fear and the actual threat of maybe pooping your pants in public? Because these are the places where we start to develop resilience and the showing up mechanism. I believe that consistency is your only ally, your only asset in the world, because consistency proves that you're always going to show up as you say you're going to show up. Be it professionally, if it's as a mother, as an athlete, but it's a consistent promise to show up on the bad days, on the hard days, on the sad days. One last little piece about flow is one really key ingredient, and Ernest Hemingway was the one that said this: quit when you're excited. So you're kicking up into Pinchamayurasana, you're falling, you're starting to get like a 3-second hold, you're tapping the wall, but you got 3 seconds. He says quit when you're still excited about it. So some of you might be writing and you're in the middle of writing a chapter and it's like this riveting moment and you could keep going. And Hemingway said quit, because then when you go back, you're going to be just as motivated, if not more motivated, to dive in at the point that gets you really excited. So flow. Flow is the optimal human performance. It's a state of mind, it's a state of being. There are some people that joke, the only thing we know about flow is that it spells wolf backwards. But I believe in it. I believe I found it first on my yoga mat, then in the world in sport. And the more we do it, the more often we have access to it.